Targeted at drivers and mothers-to-be, the 15 million Rand Reality Check campaign is the largest investment to date by SAB in raising awareness about the negative consequences of irresponsible drinking. SAB Marketing Director Penhale joins me now. And welcome, Giles. Thank you for being our host today.
Hi.
Ian, let's kick off with legislation on advertising on alcoholic brands. How have you found this has affected SAB in particular?
Well, Jackie, we don't have any restrictions on advertising at the moment from a legislation point of view. The industry self-regulates, and there are a number of self-imposed restrictions with regard to when and how we advertise. And we are happy that that is sort of a satisfactory arrangement in the meantime. Obviously, the threat of legislation has been raised, and I suppose one thing that we've observed is that there's no research which suggests that advertising increases consumption of alcoholic products, or in fact persuades people per se to drink alcohol. Advertising is there to encourage people to choose one brand or another.
Right.
So I think as long as you're advertising in a responsible fashion, according to the code that we set ourselves, at the times and places that we are restricted to by ourselves, that the benefits to the buying public are that they get to choose the brand which suits them best.
Let's talk about advertising in the future. Do you think in the future it would be affected? What is your view on that?
Look, there's always speculation about whether or not in the future there will be further and further restrictions. I think the responsibility of the industry in dealing with a product which is potentially harmful and where there are levels of abuse prevalent in society is to behave in a manner which ensures that the regulators believe that we are doing our best, that is more than sufficient, and that in actual fact will have the effect that legislation would have. In any event, the effect of legislation always has a number of unintended consequences. One of those sometimes being to drive illicit product underground, create new behaviours which weren't expected. There's the management of legislated laws and what have you, which is difficult to handle from a policing point of view. So I think it's up to the industry to behave as responsibly as they can.
So be proactive rather than reactive, that's what you're saying?
Very much to be proactive.
Right.
Ian, have you found, though, that in recent years your brand communication activity has become more focused in eventing and sort of below-the-line communication rather than avert above-the-line communication?
Giles, there is definitely growth in below the line. There is more activity below the line, more association with events. I think that's because markets have become more difficult to access in some ways. So target markets have become more niche, more defined, and you can reach them through different vehicles than, if you like, traditional ATL. I still think, though, traditional ATL has a very important role to play. From our own point of view, the budgets we spend on ATL are significant and are growing, as well as the associations with things like sports sponsorship, which are also quite a big part of our industry. So yes, on the one hand, there's no doubt BTL is growing, below the line promotional activity growing, but I think the role of ATL remains extremely important.
But just on that point, how do you assign your budgets to the particular products that fall under the SAB umbrella?
Well, from a brand point of view, we put our biggest resources behind our biggest brands, which deliver most of the volume and most of the profitability, if you like, of the company. And we then select on the balance of the portfolio those areas where we say, this is where we think there's going to be rich pickings in the future. So we would invest in certain categories of brands where we think that we're going to make returns later. But principally, we put most money behind where the volumes and profits really are.
For example, the Vanilla Ice ad.
For example, the Vanilla Ice ad, which seems to have gone down quite well, and yeah, exactly. Castle Light, a big brand, and very much a talking point.
When you speak about the whole principle of responsible advertising, responsible brand communication, when the experience of when cigarettes went into what we call dark marketing, where above the line or advertising per se was killed completely, the tactics became relationship marketing driven, and of course now we're in such a digital age and mobile and so on and so forth, and it seems brands tend to use those mechanisms to almost coerce people into use. You know, there's rewards for use and that kind of thing. What tends to be your view of how you progress into that area of brand communication?
Look, I think responsible behaviour means exactly that. So I think you've got to be very cautious about delving into areas which have got, you know, a sort of a grey connotation about whether or not they're acceptable or not. I think that in practical terms, the cigarette market is quite different to the beer market in terms of how people relate to their brands, and in fact the sort of adoption approach with beer brands is different to cigarette brands. So I'm not sure that one can draw direct comparisons. I don't think we'd want to be in any situation where we would be trying to coerce people into drinking our products when in actual fact they might not otherwise choose to. So once again, it's really around brand building rather than around, you know, trying to encourage people into the category. Our category is a very broad-based category. It's 5,000 years old. It provides great social enjoyment to many people around the world. You know, it's harmful in the sense that where there is abuse, that needs to be managed. But the actual impact of drinking on an individual in a responsible fashion is positive rather than negative.
Talk to us about your reality check campaign, the 50 million rand. Is that really what you're spending? That
is really what we're spending. It is our biggest campaign in this sort of area. I think what we've said is from an alcohol responsibility point of view, we want to lead by example. We want to champion co-regulation, and we want to have high impact programs. And certainly the reality check campaign, I think, is a high impact program. You know, we focused on drink driving because it's a very significant problem for the country. There are an amazing amount of accidents. The percentages are quite horrifying in terms of the number of people who drink and drive. Obviously they're not all drinking and driving on SAB products, but they're drinking and driving on alcohol products. And we believe that this is a fairly low-hanging fruit in a sense, and that the opportunity to target something which is having a significant negative social impact through something which is quite hard hitting, because I mean the reality is that you will get caught at some stage. Policing is improving. One of the things we've done is we've begun the introduction of these alcohol evidence centres, which are basically a speed processing of people who have been caught and suspected of drunken driving. So your ability to get away is reduced, and SAB believes that's right. So you know, that's why we've put our money where our mouth is.
We are running out of time. I'm so sorry. We are running out of time. Just very quickly, plans for 2010.
Plans for 2010? Well, we've got great plans for 2010. Our lead brand in 2010 is Castle. Castle Lager is obviously the host beer for the host team in the host country. We're the sponsors of Bafana Bafana. We have high hopes that the new coach will, you know, hopefully get us to at least through to the second round. Yeah, you know, the restricted areas from a FIFA point of view really amount to about 50 square kilometres of the entire country. You know, we've supported the bid. We're the sponsor of the national team, and we have 2 million square kilometres in which to activate not only Castle but our other brands. So we have a full program. Obviously, it'll be completely in line with regulations, FIFA regulations and what have you. We wouldn't consider breaching those. But it's going to be an exciting time. And we've kicked off already with the Superfans campaign on Castle, in fact, last week, which is a big through-the-line campaign, which we think will have a great impact on the brand. And there's lots more to come.